Some stories begin with shouting. This one began with a small vibration against a conference table in downtown Denver. We remember the exact stillness before she picked up her phone. Naomi Carter, a senior financial analyst who built her career on predicting risk for corporations, did not expect the first real threat to come from her own last name. What followed was her voice. My phone lit up while I was explaining a liquidity model to 6 executives who were pretending to understand it. I glanced down out of habit. Credit monitoring alert, new account activity. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the words, Small Business Administration 7A loan, $162,000. Personal guarantor, Naomi Carter. I stopped talking mid-sentence. Naomi, my manager. Eric leaned forward. You good? Yeah, just a second. I stepped out into the hallway, shut the glass door behind me, and opened the notification again. I read it slowly this time. Small Business Administration. 7 a loan. $162,000. Personal guarantor. Me. I felt my chest tighten, but not in a dramatic way. It was quieter than that, like something had shifted out of place. I called the credit bureau first. There must be an error. I told the representative. I did not apply for any loan. The woman on the line was calm. The application lists you as a personal guarantor. It was executed through an electronic signature platform. We can email you the documentation. Send it. I stood there in the hallway while my email refreshed. The document came through within seconds. It was a standard Small Business Administration 7A loan package. Promissory note, personal guarantee. Business information listed under my father's auto repair shop in Mesa, Arizona. And there it was. My signature. Not a messy forgery. Not a scribble. It looked exactly like mine. But as I scrolled to the final page, the logic collapsed. Below it was the line labeled Digital Audit Trail. Timestamp. IP address traced to Tyler's residential internet provider in Mesa. Email address naomi.carter.finance@gmail.com. My breath hitched. That was not my email. I used a secure corporate server for work and a private encrypted account for personal business. Someone had created a dummy account, a near-perfect mirror of my digital identity, just to receive the signing link. My hands went cold. I called my father. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, kiddo. Everything okay? I just got a credit alert. I said, there is a new Small Business Administration loan. $162,000. It says I am the guarantor. It was signed using a fake email from Tyler's house. Silence. Then, too quickly. Oh, that. That what it is, just paperwork. Naomi. Temporary. The bank needed a stronger profile to get the relaunch moving. You would have signed anyway. You used my signature without asking. Don't make this dramatic. It is for the shop. It is family. We are all in this together. The words landed heavier than the amount. In that moment, she was not reacting loudly. She was calculating. I need the full loan file. I said, every page. You are overthinking this. No. I replied, I am finally thinking about it. I ended the call. For 9 years, I had wired $2,450 a month toward their mortgage. I had cleared $41,300 of Tyler's debt. I had been a safety net they never had to acknowledge. My phone buzzed again. Text from Mom. Mortgage is short this month. Can you send $1,800? I did not answer. For the first time, I was not going to absorb the risk. I was going to audit it. I didn't go back to the meeting after that. I told Eric I needed the afternoon. He studied my face for a second, then nodded. Take it. Whatever it is. I drove home on autopilot. My condo is 700 square feet. 3rd floor. No view, unless you count the brick wall across the alley. I bought it last year after putting it off for almost a decade. I'd always told myself I'd wait until things were stable for everyone else. Stable never came. I set my laptop on the kitchen counter and opened my budget spreadsheet. It's not fancy, just columns, dates, transfers. For 9 years, the first line of every month has been the same. $2,450, mortgage support, Mesa, Arizona. I scrolled down. $41,300 for Tyler's credit cards, paid in chunks over time. $64,700 tied to Melissa's student loan refinance. My name on the guarantee. Vendor arrears, medical bills, equipment deposits. I added it up once, slowly. $349,000 and change. That's what I'd sent out over 9 years. I leaned back against the counter and let that number sit there. My take-home pay averages around $85,000 a year. After rent, utilities, car insurance, groceries, and a partial retirement contribution, there hasn't been much left. I drive a 2015 Corolla. It's paid off. I haven't taken a real vacation in 6 years. I always told myself it was temporary. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I answered this time. Did you see my text? I saw it. We're just short this month. Your father's waiting on a supplier payment. It's not a big deal. Mom, did you know about the SBA loan? A pause. Not long. Just long enough. Your dad mentioned paperwork. It's for the shop. He's trying to get back on his feet. It lists me as a personal guarantor. Well, you are family. That's not the same thing as signing. Her voice tightened. Naomi, don't start. Your father's pride has already taken enough hits. I didn't sign anything. You would have, she answered softly. You always do. There it was again. Not an apology. Not even denial. Just assumption. I stared at the spreadsheet while she talked about overdue bills and how hard it's been and how Tyler's trying. I didn't interrupt. When she finally stopped, I said, I need the full loan file, and I need the truth. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. No, I replied quietly. I've been making it smaller for years. She didn't respond to that. After we hung up, I closed the spreadsheet but didn't shut the laptop. For the first time, the numbers felt heavier than the loyalty behind them. The birthday barbecue had been 3 weeks earlier. I keep replaying it now, like my brain is looking for something I missed. Mesa was already hot that afternoon. Dad had the grill going in the driveway. Tyler was leaning against the truck, beer in hand. Melissa was arranging paper plates on the folding table. Mom kept telling me to sit down, relax, for once. I'd paid for the catering trays, pulled pork, cornbread, a cake shaped like a calculator. Tyler thought that was hilarious. When it was time for the toast, everyone gathered in a loose circle. Harper stood next to me, holding my hand without really thinking about it. Tyler lifted his bottle. To Naomi, he announced. Our emergency line of credit. People laughed, even Melissa, though hers was softer. Dad added, at least one of my kids produces consistent returns. More laughter. Mom smiled in that tight way she does. Well, when you don't have children of your own, you've got disposable income. That one hit differently. It wasn't loud. It was almost casual, like she was stating a fact. I remember smiling. I always smile first. Glad I could diversify the family portfolio. I joked back. My voice sounded normal, steady. Harper tugged my hand later while everyone else was cutting cake. Aunt Naomi, she whispered, eyes serious in a way 8-year-olds aren't supposed to be. Do they ever call just to talk to you? I blinked. Of course they do. She tilted her head. But not about money. I didn't answer right away. I just squeezed her fingers. That night, I drove back to my hotel and sat on the edge of the bed with the air conditioner humming too loud. I told myself it was just teasing. That family's joke. But now, staring at a loan document with my name on it, the toast feels less like humor and more like rehearsal. They'd already decided what I was. The full loan file arrived 2 days later. I had asked the lender for every document tied to the SBA 7A loan, the promissory note, the personal guarantee, the business financial statements, and most importantly, the digital audit trail from the electronic signature platform. When the email came through, I closed my office door and opened it slowly. Page by page, the promissory note listed the loan amount clearly: $162,000. Borrower Carter Auto Repair, LLC, personal guarantor Naomi Carter. My name looked steady in black ink. Below it was the guarantee agreement, same signature, then the digital audit trail. That page made my stomach drop. It listed the exact time the document was accessed, the email address used to open the signing link, the time the signature was applied, the IP address. The email wasn't mine. The IP address traced back to Mesa, residential internet, Tyler's service provider. I stared at the screen for a long time before I picked up the phone. This time I called Tyler. He answered with his usual easy tone. "Hey, superstar. Did you sign a loan document using my name?" Silence? What are you talking about? The SBA 7A loan, $162,000. The audit trail shows it was signed from your internet connection. He let out a short laugh. "You're acting like I hacked the Pentagon." "Did you sign it?" "It was Dad's application. I helped him upload stuff." "Did you apply my signature?" Another pause. Longer. "Look, Naomi, we were under pressure. The lender wanted a stronger guarantor. It was temporary." "That's not what I asked. You always back us anyway. This just skipped a step." I pressed my free hand against the desk to steady myself. "You reused my signature from an old refinance. You're blowing this up." "No," I replied. "I'm reading it." He lowered his voice. "If you challenge it, you'll tank the shop. If I ignore it, I'm legally responsible for $162,000. Family doesn't drag family into court. Family doesn't forge signatures." I wanted to say. Instead, I ended the call. I forwarded the entire file to a commercial litigation attorney in Denver whose name I'd gotten through a colleague. I typed a short message: "Potential unauthorized electronic signature. Need review." Within an hour, his assistant called to schedule a consultation. The next morning, I sat across from him in a small conference room that smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. His name was Mark Ellison, mid-40s, calm, no theatrics. He flipped through the documents, stopping at the digital audit trail. "Discrepancy in the audit trail," he noted. "Email doesn't match yours. IP address doesn't match your location. That's significant. What does that mean for me? If you did not authorize this signature, you can dispute the personal guarantee. It becomes a civil matter initially, but because this is an SBA 7A loan, misrepresentation could raise federal issues." I held his gaze. "I don't want anyone arrested. I understand. The first step is to protect you. We file a formal dispute with the lender and notify the SBA that the guarantee is contested. And the loan? It continues in review. But if your guarantee is voided, liability shifts to my father." Yes. I nodded once. For years, I had been the safety net, the quiet guarantor no one even had to ask. This time, I wasn't going to sign silently. Mark moved quickly. Within 3 days, he filed a formal dispute with the lender, challenging the validity of the personal guarantee. A certified letter went to the Small Business Administration regional office. Another was sent to Carter Auto Repair, limited liability company. He also recommended a strategic pivot regarding the Arizona property. "You are not legally required to continue voluntary mortgage contributions," he explained, tapping his pen against a yellow legal pad, "especially if you believe financial misrepresentation has occurred. As a joint tenant with right of survivorship, you have equity, but you are not obligated to gift them your monthly salary to cover their default." I knew what that meant. For 9 years, I had wired $2,450 every month to cover the Mesa house. My name was on the deed, but the payments had been framed by my parents as temporary support. Temporary had stretched almost a decade, consuming nearly 35% of my net income. That month, for the first time in 108 months, I did not schedule the transfer. The first text from Mom came on the 2nd of the month. Mortgage draft is coming out tomorrow. Did you forget I stared at it for a long time before answering? I did not forget. A minute later, my phone rang. Naomi. What is going on? Her voice sounded thinner than usual. The bank will mark the account as late. This affects your father's credit. I have filed a formal dispute regarding the Small Business Administration loan. I said evenly. That has nothing to do with the house. It has everything to do with trust. Mom, I am not covering anything else until this is resolved legally. She exhaled sharply. I could hear a television in the background, a game show with canned laughter that felt jarringly out of place. You are punishing us. No, I said quietly. I am stepping out of the path of the risk you created. Later that evening, Tyler called. He did not lead with an apology. So you are just cutting everyone off. You are tanking the shop. Naomi, the lender is already freezing the next draw of the loan because of your dispute. That is because you forged my name. Tyler, it was just paperwork. It was a legal obligation for $162,000. He scoffed. You are acting like we robbed a bank. I am acting like someone stole my identity. Over the next 2 weeks, the system began to buckle. Without my $2,450, the mortgage went into delinquency. The Small Business Administration marked the guarantee as under investigation. Tyler's texts grew shorter, then stopped. Melissa stopped calling altogether. The collapse was not dramatic. It was quieter than that. It was the sound of bills stacking on a kitchen counter and the sudden, heavy silence of a family that had forgotten how to function without a subsidizing force. For the first time, I was not the buffer. I was just the owner of my own life. By the second missed transfer, the entire family architecture started to wobble. Mom called again, this time early in the morning. I could hear dishes clinking in the background, a frantic, rhythmic sound, like she was cleaning just to keep her hands from shaking. We are 60 days past due, she said, her voice tight and frayed. The mortgage servicer sent a formal notice. It says delinquent in bold red letters. I know how delinquency notices work. Mom, you do not have to be cold about it. Naomi, I am not being cold. I am being clear. We cannot refinance to lower the interest rate without your cooperation, she pleaded. I am not signing anything that attaches my name to further debt. She let out a small, frustrated breath that crackled over the line. You have never talked to us like this before. That does not mean I did not feel it for the last 9 years. There was a long pause. Then, in a softer, more manipulative tone, she said, Your father has not slept. He is trying to negotiate with the lender. The Small Business Administration. Yes. They are asking for clarification regarding the guarantor. They mentioned an audit trail. They will continue to ask. I said, You put us under a microscope. Naomi. No, I answered evenly. You put me under one the moment you forged my identity. Later that afternoon, Melissa called. She usually texts first to gauge my mood, but this time she went straight to the dial. Naomi, the payment on my student loan refinance bounced. It was short by $480. I stopped covering shortfalls. Melissa, I know that. I just did not think you meant immediately. It is only $480. I have meant it for weeks. I am not your liquidity line anymore. She lowered her voice, sounding desperate. Tyler is losing contracting jobs because he cannot buy materials. Vendors will not extend terms. Dad is panicking. You are our sister, she added, hitting the note she thought would break me. Act like it. I leaned back in my chair and looked at my reflection in the dark computer screen. I am acting like a sister who refuses to be exploited by her own blood. Silence filled the space between us. The Small Business Administration sent a formal acknowledgement of my dispute 3 days later. The letter stated the personal guarantee for the $162,000 loan was under official review. It did not freeze the business overnight, but it stopped any further credit extension. Tyler called that evening, his voice a low mutter. "The lender is asking why the email on the DocuSign does not match yours. They want to know about the IP address, because it is not mine. Tyler, it is yours. You could fix this," he said. "Just withdraw the dispute. It is temporary. $162,000 of liability is never temporary." "You are blowing up the whole house," he snapped. "I am a co-owner on that deed," I reminded him. "And for the first time, I am exercising my rights." That night, Harper video called me. Her face was serious. "Aunt Naomi, are you mad at everyone? I am not mad at you. Harper, Mom says things are tight. Like, 100% tight." "I know," I said softly. "I just stopped paying for things I did not agree to. After we hung up, I watched the city lights. No shouting, no dramatic collapse, just pressure shifting back to the people who created it. Maricopa County Superior Court felt smaller than I had imagined. There were no dramatic staircases or television energy. Instead, there were beige walls, hard wooden benches, and a clerk calling names without looking up from a glowing monitor. After 7 months of legal maneuvering and thousands of pages of discovery, we were finally here. Dad sat 3 rows ahead of me, his shoulders hunched. Tyler sat next to him, tapping a restless rhythm on his thigh. Mom kept her hands folded tight in her lap, her knuckles white, looking exactly as she did when she sat in the front pew at church. When our case was called, Mark stood beside me, his posture perfect. "Naomi Carter, petitioner, Your Honor." Dad's attorney rose slowly. He was a man in his mid-60s wearing a charcoal gray suit and a practiced, calm voice. "This is a family misunderstanding, Your Honor," he began, gesturing vaguely toward our row. "My client's daughter has overreacted to a routine financing matter intended to preserve the family legacy." Routine. The word felt like a physical insult. Mark did not react. He waited for the silence to stretch before he began walking the judge through the evidence. He was a man who believed in documents over drama. "Your Honor, the primary issue before the court is the validity of a personal guarantee attached to a Small Business Administration 7A loan in the amount of $162,000. Ms. Carter did not execute this guarantee. We have submitted evidence of a catastrophic discrepancy in the digital audit trail." The judge adjusted her glasses and peered at the monitor. "Proceed." Mark handed over the forensic report from the electronic signature platform. The report details the exact timestamp of the signature, which occurred while Ms. Carter was giving a presentation in Denver, Colorado. Furthermore, the email address used to access the signing link was a fraudulent account created under the name naomicarterfinance@gmail.com. Most importantly, the originating Internet Protocol address is registered to a residential account in Mesa, Arizona, associated with Tyler Carter. Tyler shifted in his seat, his face flushing a deep, mottled red. Dad's attorney stood again, his voice gaining a desperate edge. Even if the technical process was imperfect, there was implied consent. "Ms. Carter has financially supported the business for 9 years. She has contributed 100% of the mortgage shortfalls for over 100 months. It was reasonable for the family to assume she would continue her support." The judge looked directly at me. "Ms. Carter, did you authorize the application of your signature to this $162,000 loan?" "No, Your Honor." "Did you grant permission to your father or your brother to execute a personal guarantee on your behalf?" "No." Dad finally turned around to face me. His eyes were tired, but his jaw was set. It was for the shop. "Naomi," he said, his voice lower than usual, carrying through the quiet room. "You would have signed anyway. You always do. That is not the same thing as asking." "Dad!" He opened his mouth to retort, but the judge tapped her gavel once. A sharp, final sound. Mark continued. "Implied consent does not satisfy the federal statutory requirements for a valid personal guarantee." The audit trail clearly identifies a user other than the petitioner. The judge nodded. This court finds the personal guarantee unenforceable as to Ms. Carter. There is sufficient evidence to conclude that the electronic signature was not executed by her or with her authorization. The liability for the $162,000 rests solely with the business entity and its primary officers. Mom inhaled sharply, the sound echoing in the beige room. The matter of potential federal misrepresentation is beyond the scope of this civil proceeding, the judge added, her voice chillingly neutral. However, the record will reflect the discrepancy in the digital record. The Small Business Administration may choose to review this file for further action. That landed heavier than the debt itself. The threat of a federal investigation now hung over Tyler like a shadow. The judge then turned to the second petition, regarding the jointly held property. The petition for partition is granted, as a joint tenant with right of survivorship who has contributed significant equity. Ms. Carter has the right to dissolve the co-ownership. The residence shall be listed for sale immediately, and proceeds shall be distributed according to the documented financial contributions of each party. Dad stared straight ahead at the judge's bench. Tyler leaned toward him and whispered something, but Dad didn't move. When the hearing adjourned, no one approached me. In the hallway, Mom looked at me once. Her expression wasn't one of anger or even apology. She just looked tired, as if the weight I had been carrying for 9 years had finally landed on her shoulders. Dad spoke quietly as we passed each other near the elevators. You could have handled this differently. Naomi, you didn't have to involve the law. I handled what was mine. I replied, the law was only necessary because you handled what was not yours. He did not argue. The ruling did not feel like a victory. It felt like clarity. For the first time in my life, something had been written down that did not rely on family guilt, memory, or assumption. It relied on the record. The house went on the market 3 weeks after the ruling. Mom texted me a link to the listing. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, fresh paint in the living room. The photos looked brighter than I remembered. Are you satisfied? She wrote underneath. I didn't answer that part. The realtor called me once to confirm my consent for the sale documents. My name was still on the deed as joint tenant. I signed electronically this time. Slowly, carefully, within a month. There was an offer, $412,000, after the remaining mortgage balance, closing costs, and delinquency fees. The net proceeds were just over $134,000. The escrow statement broke down the equity distribution based on contribution history. My share transferred into my account on a Tuesday morning. I watched the deposit notification without feeling much. Later that week, Mark forwarded a notice from the SBA. The loan had been accelerated. The agency was demanding full repayment from the business entity. Dad called that evening. They're calling the note, he said quietly. Liquidation's the only option. I'm aware. You knew this would happen. I knew I wouldn't carry it. He was silent for a long moment. The shop's done. I pictured the building, the lift in the corner, the faded sign out front. I'm not reporting anything criminally. I told him I never wanted that. I know. His voice sounded older, smaller. When we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and looked around my condo. Same brick wall outside the window. Same narrow counter. Same quiet. The house in Mesa would belong to someone else soon. For the first time, I didn't feel responsible for keeping its lights on. The money from the house sale sat in my account for 7 days before I touched it. I did not rush to spend it, nor did I send a single cent back. I simply let it sit there while I processed what it represented. It was not revenge, and it was not a victory. It was merely something returned that should never have been taken. I met with a financial planner in Denver and finally prioritized the future I had deferred for nearly a decade. I maxed out my retirement contributions and secured a down payment for a modest 1-bedroom condo. It was nothing flashy, but it was mine, 100% mine. Then, I visited a private bank to open a trust account. The beneficiary the banker asked, pen poised, Harper Carter. I replied. I insisted on an irrevocable trust. I named a professional independent trustee to oversee the funds, ensuring that neither Melissa nor Tyler could ever leverage the principal for their own debts. The distributions were structured strictly for education and health care. It was a fortress built around a child who deserved a chance to start her adult life with zero liabilities. When I called Dad to tell him about the trust, his voice was steadier than I expected. You do not owe us that. Naomi, I am not doing it for you, I said. I know. It was the most honest exchange we had shared in over 9 years. Harper video called me a few nights later. Mom says we are moving to a 2-bedroom apartment, she said, her voice small. It is much smaller than the house. Smaller can be better. Harper, it is easier to keep track of things. I miss my room. I know you do. There was a long pause. Then, softer. Are you still coming to visit me? Yes. I am not disappearing. I am just changing the way I show up. After we hung up, I stood by the window of my new home for most of my life. The name Naomi Carter meant available. It meant the one who absorbs the risk. Now. It means something different. It means I read every line. It means I choose what I am attached to. I can care for them without carrying them. That is enough for me. If this story felt familiar to you, you already know why it matters. I am stepping back now, but for the first time, I am staying for myself.